Okay, it's streaming now.
Thank you.
Yes, David, I'm joining the meeting. It's Sandy.
Oh, great, Sandy. I'm glad you're here.
Yeah, I was on the roll. Don't even ask. It's been a crazy day today. But anyway, I'm glad that we're almost ready. Oh, Joanne is here too.
I think we are ready because you, me, and Joanne are all here. So that's the committee. And Naomi is here. And the meeting is being recorded and also live streamed.
Great.
So we'll get started. This is a meeting of the Bylaws Committee of Community Board 11. It's February 13th, 2023 at 6:02 p.m. We have a quorum. All the members of the committee are present. And we will begin by considering adopting the minutes from the last meeting. So I will share my screen. Which screen is oh wait, I want to share a window. Hang on, I have a lot of things open.
Me too.
I'm glad you guys know what.
So I think you can all see the. No, that's not.
No,
that's the wrong
agenda.
thing. Okay.
That's
so
the agenda
stop
for
sharing
today.
that. And
we'll do that later.
Let me see if I have. I thought I had it. Give me a moment. Oh, here it is.
Okay.
Looks like the right agenda.
Wait a second. No, it's from. Wait, I wasn't sharing. I didn't want to share the agenda. I wanted to share the minutes from the last meeting. So I think that's this.
They're hyperlinked. They should be hyperlinked. Yeah. Okay.
So you should all be able to see the minutes from the January 9th meeting.
Yes.
Okay, so these were published on the board's website a number of weeks ago, and I'll entertain a motion to adopt these minutes.
I make a motion to adopt the minutes, David.
I second. Any discussion?
No,
There's
we're
no
good.
discussion. I'll call for a vote. All those against?
Aye. Oh,
nobody
Aye.
Against?
Nobody against.
Nobody against.
So, and there's no abstentions. If there's no abstentions, then we'll say it's adopted unanimously.
Okay.
I will stop sharing, but anybody can read the minutes on the board's website at any time. I think what I'll do now is share the agenda. Okay, so you should all be able to see the agenda?
Yes.
Okay, so the purpose of this meeting is to consider a number of amendments to the bylaws that were proposed by Naomi Pemberton, who is joining us today. And I understand that, Naomi, you had an opportunity to discuss your proposals with Bernadette.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
So at this point, I think I'll ask you and Bernadette if you could tell us where we are, because I understand there were some revisions that were coming down.
All right, you could start, Naomi.
Okay, so I think Bernadette, correct me if I'm wrong, you're okay with the 90-day probationary period?
Yes.
Okay, yes. So that I would like to introduce.
Could you explain how that's going to be what that's going to be part of? like the guide for new board members?
Yes, that would be a
okay.
part of the guide for new board members, that they'll have a 90-day period so they can, ask questions, see how, see how their behavior, in terms of working on the board, how's, for us too and for them.
And just to clarify, Naomi, the probationary period is, what would happen if somebody doesn't pass the probationary period? Or, I mean, would there be any conduct on a board member's part where they wouldn't pass it?
No. Can I answer that, Naomi?
Yeah, sure.
Sure, okay. One of the things that is important is for new board members to understand that they have a place to ask questions, and also that there's a give and take. So a 90-day probationary period is really sort of, let's see how things are in 90 days, like a review. How do you like your committees? Do you feel that the committees work well with, you participate in there? Do you have any questions? It's not going to be, it's more like, let's just do a review of how things are coming across as a give and take.
Can I
Just-
say something?
Can I go ahead, Joanne?
Yeah,
And then
the probationary period, maybe we can change that to introductory period, because probationary sounds like, you don't come to the committee meeting, something happens, we can get rid of you. We can't do it. We don't appoint board members. So maybe an introductory period or some other
I love
terminology.
that. I love that.
I
Joanne.
love it.
Yeah.
I was going to ask the same question, Joanne, because
Fantastic.
I mean they're appointed by the Bronx borough president. We can't
Right,
override that.
But that's not the point of the
Right,
it
I
is-
know.
Yeah, the point is basically for the introduction for new board members, especially many of the new board members that came in when COVID just started, basically hit, and they haven't had the opportunity, as many of us had previously, to actually be all in the same room, get to have, talk with people, get to have more of a introduction is a perfect word, Joanne.
Introductory.
Introductory. Yeah, to get
I
that
love that.
feel. So that's more of it. So it's just like to say, hey, it's 90 days. How do you feel? Everything okay? We're here for questions.
Right.
And,
Right,
and if
but-
there is a problem, I'm sorry, if there is a problem, then we treat them like any other
Of
board
course.
member that has a problem if they don't show up or whatever, like we've done before.
Exactly.
So we don't have to use this as something where, oh my God, I'm on probation.
No, yeah. So
That's perfect.
But it sounds like we have agreement to change the word probation to introductory.
yes.
Right.
Yes.
And they should also be aware that they can, ask things sooner than later. They don't have to wait for the 90 days.
Yes. Sandra, I mean, you
What?
guys are all in my brain.
Like if they don't like a committee or something like
Well,
that.
great
Like,
minds.
I hate this committee. Please take me off this committee.
Get me out of here. Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's very easy. That this is a time when issues like that come up, and it's a back and forth. It's basically say, how do you like it? It's like when you go into a job. It's like, well, how do you like it? Is everything working out well? Are you having any concerns? What are the concerns? And the people with the experience, the people who've been around for a long time, say, well, we tried this or we tried that, and just come to some sort of solution.
Yeah, we don't have a human resources person,
Exactly.
but that's, but we could all be part of that.
Of course. Of
Yes.
course.
So the next item is the automatic assignment to committees with a deficit of members.
Okay,
Yes.
so I'm gonna item B. Can we combine B and E
Be
and
it,
EI?
Naomi,
And
you're
And now
breaking up.
Bernadette is. Oh, I'm sorry. Can you hear me now?
yes.
Yes.
Okay. Can you please combine item B, D, and EI, and Bernadette has a plan for that. So I'll let Bernadette.
Naomi, can I make a suggestion? Because we're still having
Yeah.
trouble hearing you. Maybe if you turn off your video, you might have more bandwidth for voice. Could you say that again, please?
Sure. What I was asking for, can we combine item B, D, and EI or
Okay.
E1 together? And Bernadette has a plan for this recommendation.
Okay. The plan, actually, for past board members, this is a plan that's going to sound familiar. And what I feel is important is that we send out to all the board members an email that is saying, let me know your 3 to 5 committees that you would like to be on in preference, priority, number 1, number 2, number 3. And if there's more than 3, 4, up to 5. And from that, we will be able to speak to the chairs for those people who want to be on a certain committee. I will speak to the chairs and the co-chairs and see if those co-chairs want to speak to the person that's interested and be on the same page, make sure there's no disagreement. And also there are some chairs that I already have gotten saying, anybody who wants to be on this committee, they don't even need to speak to me. It's a go-ahead. It's a green light. So I think that's important, but it's also good for the board members to choose what they're interested in and in priority. So that I'm going to bring back. We had done that a
Oh,
while
yeah.
back. Yeah. So, and I think it's important to do it again. So that's number one. And the other is, I think as far as basically populating the committees that need population and asking them, the new members, please, if you're interested in going in this committee, please also, I want to suggest this other committee that needs to have another person on it. So that's part of combining it. It's not automatic. It's a choice of what the board member wants. And then it's a combination of, okay, let's talk, the board member and the chair, and then that person gets assigned. So
Would it be fair to refer to that, Bernadette, as a dialogue between the new member and the chair of the board?
yes.
Yeah, that sounds good. And Bernadette, I remember that. It was always great that we had our choices of what we would, prefer in the
And
past.
also
It
the
doesn't-
ask is try to do at least a minimum of 3.
Right. And it doesn't always mean you're going to get what you want, but at least you've had the opportunity.
Yes.
And that's the important thing.
Yes. I remember.
Oh, yeah.
I remember, and I said, this is wonderful. And then when I had issues with work, I asked the chair at that time, I said, look, I really can't go to all 4, but I would like, 1 or 2, whatever. And you work it out. You have to be able to be flexible. You can't not do it, but you have to work out health, you have to work something out and come to a compromise.
Right.
So that addresses B, D, and E1. So
Right.
that brings us to C, which is the mentor assignment during the probationary period.
We have to
Okay.
really change that word probation.
Well, we're changing it to introductory.
Yes.
Right.
So Naomi, you could speak about what we talked about as far as having the guide, basically labeling it the guide for new board members.
Guide for new board members. So we're going to see if we can do more of like a meet and greet or some type of formal way of just having individuals come and ask any questions that they have. We just want to make sure that there's open communication, just to make sure that people are getting the right information. That's one. And
Yes.
two, to address any concerns that they have or suggestions.
So but we're still keeping the mentoring program, right?
No, that's part, the mentoring, the suggestions, the guide for new board members will be incorporating what, everybody, my thing, everybody on the board is a mentor. Okay. As I explained to Naomi, when I came on the board, I asked everybody. I mean, there were 53 at that time, and I probably tried to pick the brain of everybody to ask questions. Well, how do you feel about that committee? You know, what are the things that you like? What do you don't like? What problems did you come up against? I just jumped in, but not everybody is going to do that. So it's really
And
helping people.
the guide for
Suggestions.
new board members, help me understand that. Is that actually a written document, or is that something that we're referring to in general?
That's something that we're going to put together, and I think the best place to put that is in the leadership meeting, is to discuss how the suggestions for the new board members.
So if we refer to it in the bylaws in capital letters as a guide for new board members, that would be fair, because it will
Yes.
be a document that people can put their hands on.
Exactly.
Maybe
Okay.
we should say that maybe as we're putting it in the minutes or whatever, you know, that we're working on this so that they wouldn't go looking
Right.
for it right away, that we're,
Right.
you know, preparing a guide,
Okay.
Right,
which will be available and we could set a time.
right.
Okay. So that brings us to E2, which is electronic certificates are awarded after the introductory period. I assume we're keeping that as is?
Yes, because after 90 days, we'll have, I like to call it a meet and greet, okay? Where
Mhm.
we'll be up at the board member, up at the board office, the board members, whoever part of the executive committee, the bylaws wants to be there. As chair, I want to be there. If the vice chair wants to be there, whoever wants to be there, and basically sit and say, okay, this is a review. After 90 days, you know, how do you like where you are? What are your concerns? And here's you know, something to say that obviously you're feeling good about it, and it's a recognition that you've gotten past 90 days and you still are doing well, and not, you know, and everything seems to be good. The questions are being answered.
Great.
It's a marker. It's a marker.
Great. So that leaves us with, I saw your note, Naomi, just before the meeting. And so maybe you can help us clarify F, the leadership committee, because I think I must have transcribed that incorrectly.
Yes, so to my understanding, it's a year to be a committee chair, any committee chair. So that's what that's what I was referring to. Any committee chair. I wasn't really talking about leadership, because I do feel that I think you need to have more experience to be on the leadership committee.
But the
But
leadership committee is the committee chairs.
But
yeah, go ahead.
I think it's just to be a chair or a co-chair of a committee, there should be a specific time. There's amount of time on the board.
On the board.
Right. To be able to have your experience on the board, whether it be 1 year or two, you know, at least 1 year or 6 months. I mean, I don't really have a preference for each one, but you know, the more experience, the better. But after 6 months of being on the board and going to different committees, etc., if you know, a person wants to be a chair or a co-chair, if they're asked or if they ask, they at least know that they have to have 6 months on Community Board 11.
Because I would feel more comfortable with that, knowing that they have a meet and greet at 90 days. So we know where they're, how they feel, and, you know, get through that process and make sure that they understand what's going on. And I think 6 months.
So would it
time.
be accurate to say that you must have at least 6 months board membership to be a chair or co-chair of a committee?
Madam
Yes.
Chair, if I might give a point of order.
No. The board members are discussing now, and then we'll have time for the public to
This is a
comment.
committee meeting. The public is allowed to speak in the committee meeting.
For
Wait,
gallery
Wait,
session.
Mr. Press,
Gallery.
Mr. Press, stop. Mr. Press,
I've
stop.
done bylaw
Mr.
revisions
Press,
for
stop,
Community Board
stop.
8.
Mr. Press, stop. I'm going
You
to speak
can't
now.
have a specific
Mr.
time
Press,
limit that you
please
have to
stop
say.
speaking. I'm going to speak now. Each committee has its own rules. The rules for this committee is that we are considering the business before our committee as is on our agenda. There will be an opportunity for members of the public to comment before we vote. But members of the public do not have a right, quote unquote, to comment during the meeting.
Discussion. Okay, so
Right, that's understood.
Okay, so we have an understanding of the changes that are proposed with some adjustments that we just discussed. There'll have to be a little bit of a back and forth, I think, with the minutes, which I expect to get out to the committee tomorrow. And Naomi, I'll include you and Bernadette and the board office so that, and we won't finalize it or even put it out as a draft until we're all clear and agree on the language, because there were some changes during the meeting.
yes,
So if
Good.
there's, if we've covered the discussion of the proposed changes and we have an agreement on that, but we haven't voted on it yet, then I'll move to the gallery session. And
David,
I will ask Jeremy if anybody registered in advance of the meeting to speak. Anybody who registered in advance will speak first. Jeremy, did anybody register?
Not that I know of. Let me double check one more time.
Okay. Is the members of the public or community board members who are present, if you would like to speak, please say so now, and I'll make a list and everyone will have 2 minutes. And then the committee will vote.
Yeah, nobody registered.
Hello.
So
Hello.
I see 2 hands raised. I see, I see 3 hands raised: Serena, Diana, and Robert.
So
Does anybody else want to speak? I've seen the chats come up while we were talking, but I'm having a little trouble locating them. Oh, wait, there they are. Okay. Okay, so I see the chats. Oh,
Yeah.
let me just bring back just trying to negotiate a lot of things on my screen here. Okay, so, and Roxanne Delgado, it looks like I see her hand raised. I don't know the order in which people raised their hands. And Cynthia. So we've got.
I'm
one,
happy to
two-
wait.
Who was that?
David, I said I'm happy to wait after. This is Serena.
Okay. So then, Mr. Press, you have 2 minutes.
Your board members come first before the public.
Thank you. Let's see. So we've got Diana and Serena and Cynthia.
Serena and Cynthia Rodriguez speak first. They're board members.
right, that's correct.
Diana,
Yep.
would you like to speak now?
Diana's,
I'm not a board member.
She's not a
I'll
board
go
member.
after Cynthia and Serena.
But hold on. I gotta mute. Do I have to mute everybody? I mean, this is David's committee. I mean, it's up to him how he wants to call who first. Am I wrong about that, David?
I appreciate that, Jeremy. I mean, from my point of view, I meant no slight toward the community board members. I'm trying to juggle everything here, and I appreciate your patience. Is there somebody who would like to speak first?
Hello, it's Roxanne Delgado. I would like to speak first, but please provide me with 30-second warning, please.
Okay, give me 1 moment to get a timer started, and then I will be able to give you a 30-second warning. Please go ahead.
Okay, I think 2 minutes is insufficient to discuss all these changes, but I'll try to make it short. I recall Marissa Davis, the owner of the former Curvin's Bar, when she was being harassed and retaliated by the board. The 36-hour rules came in place to prevent people like her to speak in front of the board with less than 36-hour notice. I know for a fact, because of me, those 2 minutes limits were imposed. So there's a lot of systematic discrimination to keep people of color, women of color, from voicing their concerns or criticism of this board. Now your board itself, your members, they seem to be changing colors. And I think this is systematic discrimination to keep them out and continue keeping the status quo. I don't see why these adult men and women who have lots of educational and work experience need to be on some kind of probational or introductional period for an advisory board. And to keep them off the leadership committee, it's ridiculous. These are grown men and women who speak the language, who have educational background, who are more than experienced to serve on this advisory board. In fact, I find some of them to have more knowledge than long-standing board members who've been here for decades. I think this systematic discrimination, I think you should reconsider keeping people out of the leadership committee and also giving all the committee heads the approval of who could join the committee. You need to have a diversity committee. You can't have anyone who agrees with the committee
30
chair.
seconds.
So again, this is systematic discrimination. I hope the new members do go to the BP office and voice their concerns, because this is just keeping out the changes that are coming. The changes will come, but it's taking too long because of systematic discrimination that's being imposed by this board for people of color in the gallery session, now people of color in the community board 11. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
May I reply?
No, thank you. That was not meant for you to reply, please.
This is
I'm
the
asking-
gallery. Who was asking to reply?
With Bernadette, who did not even disclose she was running for city council when she ran for the chair.
I was asking the chair, I'm asking David Levitt.
But your reply to my comment, I made my statement. There's no need for you to reply.
She is a member of the committee.
And listen, just imagine one that likes to
I
badmouth
am a-
people, public members before the meeting. I
All
don't
right,
need you
someone
to
needs to be
interrupt
muted.
me.
Bernadette, can I go through the people who
Sure.
want to speak, and then, okay.
Okay, sure,
So
no
who
problem.
would like to speak next?
So this is Serena. Can you guys hear me? I think I hear some reverb on my end.
I could
We
hear
can
you.
hear you.
Okay, wonderful. So I just want to, good evening, everyone. I just want to say that a couple of the new items that were proposed, I'm absolutely in favor of. I mentioned this at the last full board meeting. A meet and greet, a possible introduction to the community board in general and how it works, meeting our fellow community board members. These are things that are absolutely needed, and I love these ideas. I have to say, I do agree with Ms. Delgado in a lot of the things that she just said. One of them being the limitations, right? Although when I first start in terms of having to have been on a board for 6 months, in the reality is that all of us that do join, most of us that do join the community board, we do come with extensive experience. We may not have had community board experience per se, but we have worked in the community for years, serving our community and knowing what our community needs, right? And so when you join a community board, there are a lot of learning curves, just like when you take on a new job. And if we had a community board sort of meet and greet, introductory period, or maybe there's a different way to rephrase that, but to kind of guide us, that would be amazing. But it's not to say that there isn't innate experience that we bring. And I have to say, my case in point, and if we're talking about leadership, I'll say this. I chair as most of you do know, the Community Development and Budgetary Priority Committee, which only had probably two that met probably twice a year.
That's 2 minutes, Serena.
Okay. So yeah, I guess that's it. And thank you for your time.
Thank you. Malcolm, would you like to speak?
Yeah, I'll speak.
The floor is yours.
Yeah, so I'll just cut to the chase. I feel like these changes, some of them are good. But yeah, I have to agree that the limitations is just, disparaging, right? When I joined the board, other than Jeremy, nobody reached out to me, right? That wasn't a priority for any of the veteran members on this board. It took the newer members to speak up and to say, yo, this is what needs to happen this is how we build an inclusive board. So to say that you have to guide us by our hands now for 6 months during a probationary period, right, and then exclude us from being able to chair committees from the RIP that's to me that's disrespectful. Just straight up. We're all adults. We all come from extensive backgrounds, extensive education, professional backgrounds. And to say that you have to guide us by our hands, to me, does seem like it is a systematic reproach towards the newer members and members being appointed to the board. I do not think that I need to be handwalked. I do think that when there's time for the questions to be asked, that people should be available to do so. But I don't think I need to be handheld to get things done, especially considering that a lot of the ideas that are being pushed right now came from newer members. But I digress.
Thank you, Malcolm. Mr. Press, would you like to speak?
Yes. Your committee problems is because when you sign up for a community board, it says you need to volunteer up to 20 hours. Okay. And the problem is that this board has people only signing up for one committee, which can be 1 hour if that committee meets at all. And then your full board meeting can be 3 hours. So a person's only giving 4 hours a month. Every other board has members joining 2 committees. What you should be doing is changing it from 1 committee to 2 committee assignments. And the leadership committee can be a second committee assignment, as is on other boards that call it the executive board. The other problem that you have is there are 10 seats that were left open by the borough president and 2 vacancies now, one of which has been vacant for 5 months because your district manager did not notify the borough president's office that there was a vacancy. So that vacancy has gone for 5 months now. So if you had more members on the board, you might be able to fill these committee assignments. I myself, for 6 years on Community Board 8, was on 9 committees each year. That's how much dedicated I was. And as far as somebody mentoring me, some of your board members have already asked me to mentor them on land use because they don't know what MIHCQA is. And my board, Board 8, was the one that did it for the borough president and said it for each of the community boards. And I'm sure if anybody who was there when MIHCQA came in, they know. And also, many of your board members don't know Resolution 1211, which is a mandatory 15% homeless assignment of apartments when city funding is used. And more city funding is used, as you see on the Boston Road project. So I think I know a little bit more than most of your board members. So I don't see anybody mentoring me if the borough president would appoint me.
Thank you. That's 2 minutes.
Why. Because I don't fit.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. We'll talk about it a different time then. Thank you.
Okay. Diana Finch.
Yes, hi, thanks. I wanted to suggest one little correction. In section 2, it says term limits are 2 terms of overlapping 2-year terms, but it should be consecutive instead of overlapping. That's in section 2 at the beginning of the bylaws. And then committee membership, I think that you need to consider if people can make the schedules, the monthly schedules for the committee meetings. And I don't think that you should assign people to committees. People should be on the committees they want. You want a diversity of opinion, a diversity of background, a diversity of experience. People should be able to be on the committees they want to be on as long as there's room on the committees. The social media committee hasn't had any public meetings, and it's one of the larger committees, and I don't know why that is. And I think that you have to think in terms of all of these requirements. In a year or 2, there's going to be a huge turnover on the board because of the overall term limits that were instituted by the city council. So you should take a look at the numbers of people who are going to be leaving the board just because they've come up against their ultimate term limit. When you're thinking about limiting people from being committee chairs and that sort of thing. And I agree that the leadership committee should just be the chairs and the co-chairs, and it doesn't matter how long they've been on the committee, on the community board. I don't see why that matters. It's the community board's responsibility to give people the information they need to know to be effective committee members. It's not on the committee members to have to go through some kind of probation.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, I see that Jeremy, I think, has lowered everyone's hand on the system. We're using that to determine who wanted to speak. From my list, I saw everyone who initially raised their hand wanted to speak. I know, Bernadette, that you want to speak. Before I go to you, I want to ask one more time, are there members of the public or board members who are present who would like to speak at the gallery session? If so, please raise your hand. Or if you don't have the raise hand function, please say that you'd like to speak.
David, do you mind if I say something or ask something?
Go ahead, Jeremy.
All right, so just for clarification purposes, one reason why we put the gallery on the agendas, which we never used to, is because we've had, and Mr. Press can attest to this, we've had meetings, committee meetings, where the public is not called upon, and we are supposed to call upon the public and give them their ability to speak. Obviously, we keep it to a minimum of 2 minutes, and that is to be fair to everybody, because you know, there are some people who like to speak more than 2 minutes, and it's not fair to everybody who registers or wants to speak.
Thank you. I appreciate you clarifying that. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's okay. And I think so. I worded leadership committee membership is restricted because, as David noted, that's equivalent to not being a chair or co-chair, because the only way, aside from being an officer of the board, which we already have a restriction on who can be an officer, that is why that was worded that way. And I just want to clarify. So you guys are no longer requiring attendance at 3 committee meetings. That's 3D, right? That's being altered now. That's no longer the case.
Right, and I'll send out a draft minutes tomorrow that will reflect the changes that we discussed. And as I said, if I don't get it exactly right, then we'll have a back and forth until we get it exactly there, and then we'll publish the draft minute. Naomi had her hand raised. If you didn't have anything else, Jeremy.
I think that covers me for the most part. Thank you very much, David.
Naomi?
Yeah, I just want to address the probationary period as it is just a suggestion. I think we had a great conversation today to state, you know, it's an introductory period. Doesn't mean that people are limiting anyone based on their color or their education or limiting anyone at all. We are trying to make sure that you get the support that you need, because I came in during the pandemic, and you know, because of my personality, I asked questions and I was able to obtain, you know, certain information that helped me. But if you don't have that and you're in the background and but you can contribute so much to the board, we want to make sure that we are assessing, you know, or, you know, being able to speak to everyone. So I just wanted to address that it's not a negative word. It's a way to make sure that we connect with new members so that they're not frustrated, they understand the process, and that and let them know that the door is open for questions.
Thank you.
David, it's Sandy.
Yes.
Another thing should be realized, that since all the meetings are open, anyone on the board could come in and see what's going on at another committee meeting, just as say Malcolm has done, or Naomi, or whatever. So it's not that they just have to attend their meeting that they're assigned to. They can come in to other meetings to see how they operate and get a feel.
Exactly, Sandra. And I think that information will come out at a touch point. You know what I mean? Where, hey, why don't you go to this other committee, and why don't you try this? You know, it'll help in in opening up communication, and you'll be surprised.
Right.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sure. Thank you.
And Malcolm, I see your hand raised, but before I call on you again. I want to give Bernadette the floor, but Bernadette, before you speak, I just want to clarify something. Bernadette is the chair of the board, and our bylaws for 40 or 50 years at least have said that the chair of the board is an ex officio member of every committee of Community Board 11. What that means is that her attendance is not counted toward a quorum and she cannot vote, but she is a member of the committee. Her input is welcome and appreciated. And so with that, Bernadette, I give you the floor.
Thank you. I'll be quick. I guess I'm taking off from what Naomi said. I'm trying to equate the concept of the guide for new board members. And it's true. If you don't need any, if you don't need any back and forth or any hand holding, that's great. I mean, that's fantastic, but there are board members that might need it. There are board members that actually would like to sit in the boardroom up at Community Board 11 with the chair, the vice chair, and any other members of the executive committee that want to hear and say, what's going on? How do do you have concerns? And it's basically almost like a support group for new members so that they know that you're not just thrown into the deep water without a life preserver. So that's the concept. It's not that, well, after 90 days, then we're going to throw you to the wayside, or it is an introductory. It's a guideline. And it has been brought to a few people's attention that because of the nature of when many people came in around the pandemic, nobody got a chance to see each other. Nobody got a chance to sit in a boardroom with everybody, with the public, etc., as many others have done. So I think that it would be a good way to just allow people to feel more welcomed. Okay. The other thing about limitations, there's not going to be any limitations. The limitations are only going to be whatever you decide they are going to be, because if there is a dialogue between the chair and the co-chair of a committee. There is presently a dialogue that goes back and forth. So it's not like somebody is just assigning. I don't believe in that. I never have. There needs to be a dialogue. There needs to be a team mindset. And with that team mindset, it has nothing to do with your experience or whatever. It has to do with how you are progressing inside of the process of a community board. And it took me a while. I think it takes a lot of people a while to understand the organizational chart and to understand the process and to really be able to work within that. So if it's 6 months before you become a chair or you're a co-chair, that goes so fast and you might only have 2 or 3 meetings. So that's just a little bit of a clarification. So it's more of a team mindset that is really important.
Thank you, Bernadette. I see that 2 members of the community board have raised their hands to speak, Malcolm and Serena. If there's no objection from the committee members, I'll call on them, and without time limits, because they're board members, but I will ask them to speak for a reasonable amount of time. Malcolm, you had your hand raised first.
All right, thank you. Yeah, I mean, look, I get it, right? I mean, definitely that help should always be there, but we shouldn't need an amendment for the veteran members on the board to be teammates, right? If you know there's a member on the board and they're on your committee, the natural inclination is to reach out to them, say hello, right? And another thing is like, Serena was put as a chair of a committee that only met twice a year, right? And within that time, Serena has not only surpassed the amount of meetings that committee has had ever, right? She has come up with different ways to not only involve the community, but to also educate the community on how the budget process goes within our community, right? And that goes to show that newer members have a lot to offer, and you don't need to have that 6 months that 6 months period to say, yeah, you can chair a committee. If that person has the interest, they have the will, they have the passion, they should do it. I've seen veteran members totally fall apart during committee meetings, right? Not knowing exactly what they're doing, right? And she has run that committee better than I see in a lot of other committees. So for anyone to say that we need to be coached in any type of way is disrespectful. I'm sorry, I can't put it any other way. The only way you could actually know a person's experience is by having that conversation with them and fully including them into the runnings and operations of the board itself. Not by you deeming what is acceptable on the community board, because that could come off as many different ways. To me, if somebody's prepping me to what looks okay on a community board, I'm gonna call you racist. Because there's no way that you coming to me as a young black man with the experiences that I have and you deeming me okay to be on the community board where my political expressions and ideologies should be accepted is totally disrespectful. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Malcolm. Serena?
So thank you again, everyone, for your time. And I do have to say that I was very fortunate, and to Malcolm's point, and just to kind of go back really quickly, I did get that email when I was when I first received the letter from the borough president appointed to the board. I did have the opportunity to select the committees that I wanted to join, and I did that. And then I was appointed, as chair to this committee. And so what I wanted to finish saying, first of all, I just have to say, I got very fortunate to be partnered. And I know it's going to sound like it's going to sound, but I got a very great co-chair in Malcolm. I've learned a lot from Malcolm, and we have learned together, and we're willing to do this together. I've met a lot of our wonderful, community board members, and I'm learning through that. And I'll go back to the meet and greet and all of that. I think that's all awesome. But what I wanted to finish saying when, I initially was speaking was that this community board committee, the one that we're talking about, the Community Development and Budgetary Priority Committee, was a committee that was, I guess, chaired by someone that was deemed seasoned. And this committee did not meet. And since we have formed, I guess, this new committee, we have since met from the minute that I've been appointed in October. We've met November, December, January. We've had the Department of City Planning come and speak to what this committee really is about so that we could start at its foundational roots, so that not just we're learning, but our community members are also learning. We've been very transparent, and we've taken this committee, and we're really serious and very dedicated. And so when we're talking about seasoned committee members, I don't want us, and I'm not just talking about me, I'm actually thinking about our newer board members coming in. I don't believe that this 1 year of being on the board to be committee chair of anything is even necessary, because when you have equipped and adequate individuals that really want to do for their community, I think that if we stop that, then we're not really being equitable across the board, and we're not really bringing in new ideas. And I'm not talking about me, I'm talking about the newer members that are going to join us. And so I want to also give them the opportunity that, hey, if you want to do this, come and do this. And we're really a team, and we really want to see you succeed, because we as a community want to succeed. And that's all I want to say. Thank
you, Serena. Is there anyone else like to be heard before we move to a vote? I close the gallery session and we move to a vote. Cynthia?
Yes, Cynthia.
Yes, just one final point, kind of to piggyback off of what Serena and Malcolm were saying, is that to put limits on us at this point in the game is disheartening, because particularly from what I've seen from the day I joined this board, I attend almost every committee meeting, just because I want to learn, I want to be involved, and I want to be of use. And to say that, well, we have to limit how much you can do and how much you can contribute simply by virtue of the fact that you haven't been here X amount of time is dismissive of the effort that I, for example, I'm putting in as a relatively new member who comes to pretty much every meeting. And, I say what I feel and what I try to contribute to in terms of ideas or whatever. But I just think that that has to be highlighted and underscored and put in quotes and big capital letters, because you have a lot of new people who have come in here and in a very short period of time have shown an enormous amount of commitment to this community board.
Thank you. Seeing no other hands raised, I'll close the gallery session and I shall attempt to summarize I'm sorry, Jeremy, did you want to speak?
Yeah, your meeting shouldn't take too much longer, but I do want to note, I feel like some people here are violating the conduct statement and they should refrain from attacking others. They may
Is that
not
in
like,
in the chat? Are you referring to the chat?
yeah, I mean, sometimes we just for full board meetings, we disable the chat for that reason. But I mean, I
Okay,
think, yeah,
two
go ahead.
questions about the chat. First of all, are you able to save a copy of it?
Yep, yes, I can.
And are you able to shut it down now during the
Yeah, I can
meeting?
do it right now if you're okay with it.
Is there any objection on the part of the committee of stopping the chat for this meeting?
So why don't you review the chat before you just take his word on it?
Okay, so this is what I'm talking about.
I'm not going to read everything in the chat. There'll be a record of it. And we're going to stop the chat for right now. Okay, so the gallery session is closed. I'm going to attempt to summarize as best I can the changes that we've agreed upon so that we can take a vote. So the following proposed changes to the bylaws of Community Board 11, or I'm putting this in form of a motion. One is that there be a 90-day introductory period for new members. Two, that the chair of the board will circulate a survey of committees, soliciting from each new board member for them to rank the 3 top committees that they would like to join, after which there will be a dialogue between the chair of the board and the new board member in determining committee assignments. 3, that an electronic certificate will be awarded upon completion of the introductory period. 4, that a guide for new board members will be distributed. A guide for new board members will be distributed in written format. And 5, that in order to be appointed a chair or co-chair of a committee, that you must be a board member for at least 6 months. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Joanne. Is there any discussion?
Well, I think in light of what the people were saying about the leadership, maybe we should revisit that and perhaps take away the 6 months, especially since thinking Serena was assigned it pretty much right away to be a chair. So perhaps, you know, we can dispense with that or make another motion to not have a restriction.
Let's talk about that for a minute. First of all, I have a question and a statement. One is that it wasn't my understanding that this, if anybody was a community board member for less than 6 months, that the purpose of this was to mean that they weren't a committee chair anymore. That's number one. I don't know if anybody falls into that category, but I just wanted to clarify that. That wasn't my understanding. Number 2, I'm not aware from memory that we have a requirement in our bylaws that a committee chair has to have served on the community board for a year, because I know that came up as part of the discussion. Does Jeremy, are you aware of that? Is that something you could point me to?
I don't know. I don't know of that. I don't know of anything like that.
I
Okay,
don't ever remember anything like that, David.
No.
So if that's the case, and I haven't had a chance to, of course, review the bylaws in detail while we're meeting, but for the moment, if we all agree that there is not a 1-year requirement to be a chair of a committee, then this proposal would be imposing a new requirement that there be a 6-month period before you can be appointed a chair. So Naomi, since this was your proposed change, are you willing to withdraw it temporarily?
Yeah, I mean, I just want to validate that that's not in there, because that was brought up the last time we met, and I didn't see that anyone disagreed with it. So if just as long as we validate it, I'm fine with that. Yeah, if there's no limit, that's great.
Okay, so then Naomi, you're withdrawing that part. That won't be part of the motion. So then Joanne, I'll withdraw it as part of my motion. We won't have to vote it down and then have another motion.
Okay.
So to clarify, there is no requirement to service on the community board for X amount of time before you can be appointed a chair. Okay, so we all understand that. And
Right.
Joanne, you seconded the motion,
Yes.
and we're in discussion now. Is there any further discussion before we take a vote?
No, David, all I wanted to say was it's leaving it open-ended, which is good, because we're not giving a specific period of time.
Okay.
Okay.
So with that, I'll call for a vote, and I will ask first, is anybody, that the voting members today are me, Sandy, and Joanne, the members of the committee. Is there anybody on the committee who's voting against the motion?
No,
Is there
No,
anybody who's
I'm not.
abstaining?
no.
Okay, so
No.
then we'll say that it's unanimous, and these changes will be presented to the full board this month, which is February, and we will vote on it this month. And if they are approved by the full board, will take effect immediately.
Okay.
Okay, so with that, I will ask if there's any old business. Is there any new business? I know we have some new, I think there was some new proposals. Bernadette, did you get new proposals? I think Miguel had made some proposals. Jeremy, do you have those?
Naomi, I believe, made
Yes.
one, and then Miguel made several of them, or at least 3 of them.
Okay, so
You can
then
pull them up
those,
if you really want.
so just to remind everybody of the process, a board member can propose a change to the bylaws. It goes to the chair of the board, Bernadette. Bernadette then presents the proposed changes at a full board meeting. So if she has all those, which she should have them in writing because I have them, so she should have them. She presents them at our meeting in February. Then the bylaws committee will meet in March, and then we will be able to vote on the changes at the March meeting.
correct.
Okay. Then I'll ask if there's any other new business. Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I just have a quick question for the
Yes.
committee members. Would it be, I would like to know what the committee members feel about making bylaws a standing committee and not a non-standing committee, since you basically meet more times during the year than probably any of the other committees. So I would like to get feedback from the committee members.
I'm happy the way it is
Okay.
at this point, because
I-
there are years that we're not meeting as much.
It puts speaking for myself, it puts a burden on the committee when we don't have changes. It's been my practice that when changes are proposed by board members, that we do not make any effort to sit on those changes, delay them. As soon as they're presented, we have a meeting and we make sure that they're passed as quickly as possible to the full board. And I feel confident that we could continue to do that, because right now we're in a period where we have multiple changes that we're considering. We have an active board, an active committee, I meant to say, and that we can get together and meet regularly. But when there aren't changes, then it would be hard for us to have something to meet about. Then again, the bylaws do state that committees
Yes.
don't have to meet if we don't have business. Although I have to state personally that I always found that requirement a little confounding, because I wasn't aware how a committee of Community Board 11 would not have business to meet about on a monthly basis, except July and August when we're not required to meet, because there's so many issues to discuss. There's so many changes in city policy and that to discuss. But that's my opinion, that it isn't necessary at this time.
And I agree, David.
I agree too.
Okay.
Dave, I did have one question because I did tune in a few minutes late, so I don't know if this was part of the discussion.
Who's speaking?
Cynthia, board member.
Okay, go ahead, Cynthia.
Was there any discussion about the service requirement to become eligible for leadership?
Yes, we were
Yeah.
talking about, there was a proposed change to make the to make it have 6 months of board service before you could be appointed to a committee chair or co-chair, which makes you a part of the leadership committee, because the leadership committee is composed entirely of committee chairs and the executive board, the elected officers. But as part of the discussion at this committee, we all agreed that there was no requirement previously, and we did not want to impose one. So at the end of this meeting, I could say confidently that there is no requirement that you have service. I'm sorry, I'm using so many words, but there is no requirement of service for a certain amount of time before you can be a committee chair or co-chair. Does that answer your question?
My apologies. I mixed my terms. I was speaking specifically to the executive committee.
Oh, you're talking about an officer.
Yes.
Okay, so there was no discussion at this meeting about changing that requirement. I don't have the proposed bylaw changes in front of me for consideration at our next meeting, but Jeremy, help me. Was one of the proposed changes to reduce that from 2 years to 1 year?
Yeah, I think yes, one of them was, and a member of the public did raise the issue tonight during the gallery.
Okay, so I think so then what we will be discussing at our next meeting, which I urge you to attend, is that a proposed change to reduce the amount of time that you're a board member from 2 years to 1 year before you're eligible to run as an officer. Keep in mind that that rule was around for a very long time before term limits were imposed on community board members. So now that there are, I think a community board member can serve for a maximum of 8 years. So I believe that that's where that proposal is coming from in part. Does that address your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions, comments before we adjourn?
If I can just clarify
Yes.
the question that Burnett raised, I think everybody on the committee and Burnett knows that I've been pushing that issue about the standing or non-standing. And the only reason is because the point of a non-standing committee is once you conduct your business, right? You look at the bylaw changes or the election like just happened. The point of a non-standing committee is it doesn't stay standing for years on end, which is what has been happening here. So it's just really a formality, and codifying or disbanding the committee that's why I push that issue.
Well, there's no requirement in the bylaws that a non-standing committee has to dissolve after a certain period of time. We've never had that requirement.
No, I understand, but that is in spirit, that's the idea though, right? Of a non-standing committee.
No, I don't think so. You know, it was funny. I was discussing this with my son, and he said, about the bylaws committee and what we had thought about doing, taking your suggestion. He goes, it's not necessary. Just leave it as it is. And that's not even on the federal level, which he works on. So that's why I'm content to have it as it is. And we're willing to work when necessary.
So you're saying in theory, standing committees should be standing. They should never be disbanded. Is that what you're saying?
Did you mean to say non-standing committee?
Non-standing.
Yeah, not non-standing, because this is a non-standing committee, right? It's not supposed to be in existence. That's the idea, right?
I wouldn't say forever, Jeremy. I wouldn't say forever for anything, but I think that that the way that the committee is being run and that we're addressing issues, you know, what if I've had my say on that. We can just, Bernadette, we can discuss it further if you feel strongly about it, but
No,
I
I
think the
just,
committee has had its say on that.
right, I think, I think if the committee, I mean, I think the decision, like the elections committee, et cetera, that was, you know, disbanded. Because whenever there is another election committee, there might be other members. But it seems with the bylaws that this committee should stay as it is fine. I just brought it up as if it was something that the committee members wanted. So keeping it the way it is at this point, I think it's fine. I don't think it should be dissolved. I think that the members here are in tune with what exactly has to go with the bylaws. When they have issues to be discussed, then they will basically set up a meeting and have an agenda.
And I'm not disagreeing with that.
Mhm.
And I'm not trying to make David part of the leadership committee meeting again. But when these issues do come up at leadership, it's sometimes helpful to have. I mean, I know sometimes Naomi shows up to them anyway, or actually she's on the ethics committee, so she has to go to them anyway. But there is that chance that, you know, that voice is not there, leadership either.
I appreciate that, Jeremy, but there are other people on the board who are familiar with the bylaws. The bylaws are public and anybody can read them at any time and carry a copy of them with them and answer questions about them. If there are, of course, anything that's confusing, then
It goes to the
right,
bylaws.
then it would come
Right.
here anyway because we'd have to make an adjustment. Not because we're here to quote unquote interpret them. We're here to make them as clear as possible to anyone who's reading them. And also
Clarification is very important.
and also to ensure that there's no glaring conflicts. Because if one section says one thing and another section 3 pages later says the opposite, that doesn't help anybody. So
Right.
so I'm glad that
Thank
we
you.
were able to work through these issues today, and I thank everyone for their participation, and I thank Jeremy for coordinating the meeting, recording, putting it on live stream, and because that requires a lot of effort, and we do appreciate that. So if there's no other issues, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I just want
I
to say,
second
David,
it.
I just want to say, David, thank you very much for all your work. What you do is difficult,
Amazing.
and I want to thank you for that.
Thank you, and I appreciate that, but my approach is that it's a team effort, and so
Right.
it's I may be doing most of the speaking, but everyone is contributing, and so I thank everyone, and
I
we
appreciate
will
the team.
we will meet again next month.
Right.
Have,
Thank you so much.
have a
David,
good night, everyone.
Thank you. Have a
Thank you.
good
The
night.
motion,
Take
I'm sorry,
care.
the meeting is adjourned at 7:08 p.m.
Okay,
Good
thank you,
night.
everybody.
You take care.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
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 All righty.